Why is it important to be human as a leader?
The challenge with being authentically human is that this includes things like being vulnerable. Like, what climate do you create? And who are you? Like, what does it look like inside you? And just have a conversation about where to start. There's never the right moment, right? You got to start with what you have. We all have influence on others. And sometimes we also have not such a good influence on others. So can you be a role model, or can you not be a role model?
Welcome back to another episode. It's the Everyday Leader podcast. Tate and I are going international today. Today we have Thomas Gelmi. He's a leadership coach from Switzerland, a speaker, an author, and we're going to discuss the difference between leadership and management, as well as the importance of emotional intelligence and leading with the human element. Thomas shares some of his unique views on leadership, how he became a coach, going from working in the circus and working on the airlines to starting a business that really helps and serves others. And we really dive into emphasizing the significance of authenticity and vulnerability in those roles. Excited to bring you another awesome episode.
Welcome to the Everyday Leader podcast. Leadership is a choice. Join me, Matt, and my co-hosts Drew and Tate each episode as we break down how to lead powerfully in your family, team, and organization.
Welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Leader podcast. Tate and I are happy to have Thomas Gelmi with us today. He's a coach with a lot of experience, and we're super excited to talk about leadership with him today, being human as a leader, and share his stories and what he's learned in his career around leadership. So thanks, Thomas, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. For our listener, this is kind of fun. Most of the people we've had on our podcast are in the States, and you are not.
I'm not. I'm in the heart of Europe, in the center, exactly, in a little country called Switzerland. So this is my hub.
This is fun because I think you're our first. No, maybe we had any other international guests, Tate? I can't remember. But if you're not our first, okay. But first from Switzerland. So yeah, exciting. Well, we always like to ask Thomas.
Say again.
Is leadership different over there?
I would say, yeah. I mean, if you want to jump right in, yes. Culturally, there are differences when it comes to leadership. Definitely.
We can dive more into that later. I just
exactly.
Flip that in there. Exactly.
Well, Thomas, tell us. We love to start the conversation by asking our guests how they define leadership. We feel like that word could mean so many things to so many different people. So if you had to define leadership, what is leadership to you?
Yeah, you're really spot on by saying that it could have so many meanings. You ask 10 people what leadership is, you get probably 15 different answers. So to me, one of the definitions I really like the most is that leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. Mm-hmm. It's about influencing people. It's about mobilizing, inspiring, de-escalating, different sorts of influencing. But in the end, it always comes down to having influence.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, it really simplifies it down to the core of what it is.
Yeah. And it also comes with a distinction between leadership and management, right? The two are often a bit, mixed up and confused, or even used as synonyms, meaning two words for the same thing, which they are not at all. You can imagine the work of a manager who can also be a leader, but not necessarily has to, right? You can be a manager and not really a leader. You can imagine the work in a triangle. It's the manager, and then there's the tasks, and then there's the people. And all the task-related stuff is called management. And the people-related stuff is called leadership. You can manage a payroll, yes. You can manage headcount in an organization, but people, you got to lead them.
Glad you bring that up. Go
ahead, Drew.
Go ahead, Tate. Well, I'll say glad you brought that up, Thomas. We believe that too. We believe there's a difference between leadership and management, and that they're very different. What's the problem with trying to manage people? that you found?
Well, a lack of inspiration, lack of guidance, lack of the human factors in dealing with people, which is what makes all the difference, right? If you try to manage people like as if they were numbers or machines, right? Usually doesn't end very well. Can you be successful like that? Yes, of course, up to a certain extent. Will you bring out the best in people? Will you bring out the potential in everyone? Will you make people thrive and benefit from that for your company? Probably not. And the challenge with that is that, when you ask leaders or when you ask managers behind closed doors, which part of your work as a manager would you get rid of first if you could? And a majority is like more than 2/3 will say, well, all the people stuff, everything that has to do with people, everything that, can get messy because it's about people. I would like to get rid of that immediately if I could, and then focus on the managing part, because that's predictable. Well, a bit less so than 2 decades ago, but still much more predictable than dealing with people. So, yeah, that's a challenge.
Yeah, I've always said that, when I was in roles like that, the best and worst parts of some of those roles were the people. And
Yes.
I like that because it kind of encompasses what you're saying. People don't like it because it's messy, and it really can be so rewarding. I mean, people are amazing, and back to the human element. And so
Absolutely.
kind of on that, we've touched on it a couple of times. It's been brought up. But what does the human element mean to you? Like, how do you define that? Like, how do you describe that?
Well, it's all the things that have to do with us as human beings that make us unique, that distinguish us, right? And we could say what is often referred to as soft skills, still, term which you may notice I don't like so much. I call them essential skills or human skills. And it includes things like emotional intelligence, for example, which since Daniel Goleman wrote Emotional Intelligence in 1995, we know how these are actually the things that make the difference. There's the IQ, the intellectual intelligence. That's what we measure with IQ tests, etc., logical thinking, rational thinking, etc. Of course, it's important, yes. But what really makes the difference in leadership and wherever people want to achieve something together is emotional intelligence. And that includes various aspects. So Goleman, who was a pioneer, still is in the field, he says it's mainly 4 main aspects of emotional intelligence. 2 of them have to do with yourself as a human being, and 2 of them with others. So the inwards directed factors are emotional self-awareness and emotional self-management or self-regulation, right? So are you aware of your emotional state at any given moment? Like right now when you're listening to this, what's your emotional state? And can you be a bit more specific than just good or bad? And once you're aware, you can regulate, you can control, because only what we're aware of, we can actually control. What we're not aware of controls us. Like, for instance, our emotions, right? So awareness is there, and then you can regulate. For example, when you come out of the meeting and you're frustrated and anger has piled up and everything, and then because we have back-to-back meetings all day, we go directly into the next meeting. And maybe it's an important conversation, a one-on-one with a team member. So am I aware of what I bring from the past meeting as a inner state? And am I able, if necessary, to take a few deep breaths and regulate that down, or put that topic that made me so angry on the side and park it for a moment so that I can go into that next meeting unbiased and with openness and respect and appreciation for the other person. So these two are self-centered or self-oriented, and the other two are outwards-oriented. One of them is empathy. So being aware and being able to sense and understand other people's emotions, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. And it takes both the capacity to do that and the willingness, right? And then the fourth one, or the second outward-oriented one, is relationship management. The ability to influence other or somebody else's emotional state. For example, by creating enthusiasm, stimulating enthusiasm, inspiring them, mobilizing them, but also, as I said earlier, calming someone down or helping them to calm down to de-escalate a conflict. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're talking about when we say human factors in leadership.
Okay, Thomas, let's change gears for just a second. Tell our listeners how you got to what you're doing now. What's Thomas's story? Like how come leadership's such an important thing to you?
All right, how much time do we have? No, I'm kidding. I'll give you the executive summary. All right. I actually have a quite colorful biography and not a typical career path whatsoever. I have been doing what I'm doing now for around about 25 years, 25-ish, right, already. But before that, for example, I started earning my first money cutting people's hair when I was 16. And only later understood that while I was cutting hair, I was already having deep conversations and I was listening, and people were opening up to me, telling me things I sometimes didn't even want to know. Right. So that's the role of a hairstylist. But then I thought, well, there must be much more out there for me to try out and find really what's mine, what's my calling. Right. And so I ended up working with a circus, living in a trailer for almost 2 years, and then ended up with the national Swiss airline, Swissair at the time, and started working as a flight attendant. And suddenly, boom, the whole world opened up for me. And there's cultural diversity, and there was people in a confined space, 300 people, right, for 10 hours squeezed in a tube, and everything happens at the same time. Customer contact, teamwork, leadership, conflict management, everything. And you have to handle it because you cannot get help from the outside or call the cops or whatever you might want to do in a normal setting. And so I learned a lot there about these topics. And then in 2001, about a month after 9/11, it was, Swissair grounded. It ran out of money, big national drama. And I decided to close the chapter and open the one I still have open in front of me, which was the best thing I ever did in my entire life, not just on with regards to what I'm doing, but also with regards to running my own company and doing it. So yeah, that's in a nutshell my story.
So from barber shop to circus to airlines,
yeah,
to
exactly.
your own coaching
to my
business.
own circus now. Yeah,
your own circus. Yeah. Where do you feel like that, just that fascination or that desire to help and serve and lead and teach people? Where'd that come from?
I think it is deeply rooted in my own development as a person, and in my own wish and desire to grow, and that what I have understood to be helpful for myself, I want to go. I want to give away. It's like, I think it's Pablo Picasso, the famous painter, who said the meaning in life, or the meaning of life, is to find your true essence and your gift, and then give it away to others. Right. So I feel that's what I'm doing. I feel I'm sharing what I have seen to be working, and hopefully inspire and encourage others on their path, which is basically also what I get as feedback.
I've got kind of a fundamental belief that everyone's a leader in some aspect of their life, whether that's just at home or at work, coworkers at work. And I think where you start to differentiate a little bit is those of us that can identify that and accept it and say, yes, I am a leader, and I'm going to do it with some intentionality. So my question to you is, was there, or what was the moment when you realized, like, man, I have influence over people and I can use this in a positive light and really help people?
That I had an influence, I think that realization came very early on in my teenage years, when I realized that people were seeking contact and conversations when they had difficulties or issues, or people just felt apparently like they wanted to talk to me, and talking to me somehow gave them something that was helpful. So I realized that early on, but then of course that sense of having influence grew more and more and more. But I'm not even sure whether I am now aware of the range of influence, or the circle of influence I really have. I sometimes suspect that it's bigger than I feel, or than I think. When I get emails or messages from places and from people that I've never heard of, and who say thank you because of that and that and that you said. I said, okay, good. So yeah, if that answers your question. Yeah. And I'd like to quickly add something to what you said a moment ago. You said we are all leaders in a way, right? The question is, or the differentiator is often whether we are intentional about it or not, right? I would even go one step further and say we all have influence on others, whether we know it or not, whether we're aware of it or not. And sometimes we also have not such a good influence on others. So can you be a role model, or can you not be a role model? Can you avoid being a role model? I don't think so. You are one. You are one, always, a good one or a bad one. Right? And the intentionality that you mentioned, that in my understanding comes with the awareness of the impact I have, the effect I have on others. That's what makes all the difference, because then I'm not just like on autopilot and I have no idea what the effect of my showing up is on others, but I can be more intentional and fine tune and yeah, I can drive the car rather than just being a passenger.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much to unpack there. One quick question, because it's still coming up in the back of my mind. What did you do in the circus?
Yeah, I was not the clown.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that, to get that thought out of the way immediately. No, it was interesting. I was I was in a different job, a newspaper, job ads in the newspaper. At that time, that's how it was done. And there was a small ad that only said Circus Viva, looking for press spokesperson. And I thought, I can do that. So I went there. I had my job interview in front of the circus director's big trailer, nice wooden trailer. And 2 weeks later, I moved into my trailer, which was much smaller. And then in the end, I ended up doing also some media relations and press work, also tiny little bit. And mainly I was doing whatever you do when you work with a circus. You do everything. You climb up the mast to hang up a spotlight. You drive a big industrial tractor with 2 hangers up the mountains. You are knee deep in the mud on a rainy day because you need to dismantle the tent and load it and go to the next location. So it did me good. It helped me, or it taught me to help with my hands, and do some also some heavy labor. Right, it was good for me.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, so if we dive back into leadership some more, you told us before we started you like talking about the concept of being human as a leader. Talk a little bit more about what you mean by that. What's it mean, or and why is it important to be human as a leader?
Yeah. We could also translate it into being authentic, like your true self, as a human being, showing up as who you are. Of course, when you have a leading role in an organization, you are in a role. I tend to say you're stepping onto a playing field like a chessboard, and you're stepping into your role, and you play that game that is being played all day, that has your company name, together with other people in their roles, right? And yet it helps to find a role that you can fill with your true self, and that does not require you to like bend completely into something or someone you're not. Now, the challenge with being authentically human is that this includes things like being vulnerable, showing your vulnerability, right? Removing the mask, taking off the armor and the helmet, or at least opening the visor, so people can connect with you. And that's already the challenge for many, because especially people new in leading roles, if they don't get the necessary support and guidance when moving into the role, they just do what they think is best, and very often it leads to them putting on a mask, putting on that sometimes macho mask, as in, I'm the boss now, so I have to know everything, have all the answers, tell people what to do, and be in control, right? Not always the best way to, start a performing team when you take it over. So it requires some work on yourself, at least some exploratory work, finding out what drives you, what are your qualities, your strengths, what are you really good at, but also what are your limitations? Do you know your limitations, and will you respect them, and then show up as that person, because who we are is how we lead, right? And so the more I work in this field, the more I help leaders, become more effective in what they do, the more I realize that in its essence, leadership development is personality development. It's not so much about learning tools and methods and techniques, and of course it helps if you know how to structure a meeting methodologically. Of course that helps. But what really makes a difference is who you are and how you show up, and what happens when you enter the room. and what people will say about you and the impression you leave when you leave the room again. On the relationship level, like what climate do you create? And who are you really? Like what does it look like inside you? Because everything you do and say and how you react is flavored by that. Depends on who you are. Which makes it a bit more complex than to just go attend a 2-day leadership training.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that I've thought about over the years. Is you can go to a gazillion trainings and everybody, for the most part, teach similar stuff. Maybe a different trick here, different trick there. And I like how you correlate it there to kind of your personality, because it really is. And I don't know, from what I'm hearing you say and kind of my thoughts, is that awareness is really where you can begin to shape that.
Yeah.
Because without the awareness, none of the tricks or anything else matter.
Yeah. Exactly. And in many cases that I see in people I work with, it's not even about adding something on top, skill, or tools and methods and techniques, but about removing everything that's not genuine, everything that's not them, everything.
Yeah.
You know how it is. We acquire stuff and we take on beliefs and values from early on, and they shape us, right, in who we become. And at some point, it might be a good idea to examine all of that with the question in mind: is that really what I believe? So is that really what I believe, or have I just taken that on without examining it, without checking whether? And as children, when we are growing up, we don't question, right, things. We just okay, we learn, we soak it all up. But yeah, getting rid of everything that's not you is a good idea.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the guy on there was talking about this kind of stuff, and his quote was, "People don't want to follow somebody that's always right. They want to follow somebody that's always real."
Oh yeah.
And
it's spot on.
Like, yeah, it really stuck with me.
Yeah. And I have an additional quote there by former U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, by the way, who said, "People don't care how much you know before they know how much you care."
Yeah.
So, and that's so. If you translate that into what does it take to be a good leader? It takes competence. Yeah, it's better that you know what you're talking about. It takes authenticity, like be yourself. Also know what you don't know and be comfortable with that. And it takes emotional intelligence, particularly empathy. And out of the three, the competence in terms of subject matter expertise is the least important. It's not unimportant, especially on a team leader level. You still need to be the expert also for supporting people in the subject matter. But especially when you move on in the organization, it becomes less and less important. And the more and more important become authenticity and empathy, because it's about people. So to close the circle to what we discussed earlier in the beginning. Yeah.
Thomas, got a question around authenticity and vulnerability. So where does a leader draw the line between showing vulnerability and also trying to think how to word this? Like, if things are difficult or tough, where do you draw the line between what's too much vulnerability? Or, I mean, we don't want to tell our people, we don't want to scare our people if so I guess I don't know what I'm asking, but hopefully you know what I'm getting at.
I think I get the idea because it's a question that I sometimes get, really. Good. Look, vulnerability in the workplace. I said we're in a role, right? So be in a role and be aware of that role and be aware of what this role requires you to do and how this role requires you to act and behave in order to be effective. Number one. And this can help alone. This role awareness can help to not let everything come so close to you that it personally hurts or emotionally stirs you up so that you can't sleep at night and all of that. So this role awareness can create like a buffer, a protective layer that can help and support vulnerability because there's some sort of protection already through this role awareness, right? So that's number one. And then, of course, you don't want to stand in front of the board of executives and have to hold a presentation and then tell them that you have no clue. That's not what I mean with vulnerability. And that's not what, by the way, for example, Brené Brown means, who's done a lot of work in this domain of authenticity and vulnerability in leadership. Highly recommended. Let me give you an example. Suppose there's a leader leading a small team, and that leader is one of those I mentioned earlier who doesn't have the courage to be authentic, but believes that a leader has to be the strong guy, being in control, on top of things all the time, know everything, have all the answers, and never make a mistake, of course, right? A leader has to show strength. Good. So that's this person's self-image as a leader. Now, this leader makes a mistake, wrong decision, or forgets to do something, or whatever it may be, makes a mistake. And everybody knows and sees and is aware of that mistake. But then that leader pretends that nothing happened, pretends that everything's under control, and basically tries to cover up, right? Tries to not disclose and not show any weakness. But everybody's aware of that. So what happens to that leader's credibility, acceptance as a leader, and trust? You can make a guess, right? I mean, this is pretty logical that all of them go down. Now imagine a different leader, or that same leader after some development and some work and some reaching a level of authenticity and being comfortable with that, makes a mistake, something goes wrong, and then meets with the team and says, hey guys, look, this and this happened. I made a mistake. I made a wrong decision. Now we have this situation and we need to find a solution together. So what happens with credibility? What happens with acceptance? What happens with trust? I mean, they all go up through the roof because what's the message? The message the person is sending very clearly is, hey, I am open, I'm transparent, you can trust me. What I say is what I do. And I'm also, by the way, a human being that's not perfect and that makes mistakes, like all of you. And it's safe here to openly say that because we create together a climate of psychological safety in which it is safe to make mistakes and talk about them, speak up if you have a different opinion, or even say, I don't know what to do next. I need help. I need support. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, this climate of psychological safety is the number one factor for high-performing teams. So it's not about, being everybody feeling cozy and warm and sugarcoating everything. No. It's about creating this climate in which this is possible, and in which we can also have the tough discussions because it's safe. So what may look at, or what may seem like a weakness at first glance, admitting a mistake, is actually the game changer. And that's the kind of vulnerability we're talking about.
I love that. I think that's a good way to differentiate it. It's not about sharing every problem in your life that you might be dealing with personally or outside of work or professionally. It's taking responsibility, taking ownership, creating a foundations of trust where communication can happen. In fact, as you were sharing that, I went to a few months ago. I went to a leadership training, and in the room was a lot of the people in this room were executives, and several brought their teams with them. And I don't even remember the details now, but I remember one of the leaders that had his team there opened up and shared some of the things he felt like he struggled with as the leader of his team. And it was so interesting because then several people on his team rallied to support him and then started sharing how great a leader he was and how amazing he was at everything he did. And it felt like just because he was willing to be vulnerable and say, hey, I'm the leader and here's some of the areas I'm struggling with and here's some of the things I need help with my team. Like it seemed like that trust, you could just see it just elevate. And then they just backed him. And it was almost like everything he said didn't matter because they had his back.
Yes, so it can be such a booster. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
So kind of as we get to the tail end of this conversation, one of the questions that I have is for those that are kind of new to these concepts, not sure how they felt about the difference in leadership or management, and just starting to explore, put their toe in the water. What is your top recommendation or top couple recommendations on how to start, where to go, what to do?
Well, read about these topics. Read books about leadership, or take an online course. Like, for example, my academy, I have an online academy. You can take online courses that bring you closer to exactly these concepts. Talk to a coach, right? Talk to someone who supports people in becoming leaders or better leaders, and just have a conversation about where to start, and then start with what you have. There's never the right moment, right? You got to start with what you have, and there are two main hindering beliefs in leadership development, or maybe even in any kind of development, that are helpful if you get rid of them. One is, I'm not ready yet. That's basically what I just said. There's never the right moment. And the other one, just as hindering, is, I got it. Check. I have it. I am the perfect leader. Nothing to be improved. Which is a belief we often find pretty high up in organizations, that locks the door to further development. This belief that, I made it up to here. I mean, can't be that bad. Yeah. Lack of awareness for what could be possible if you would just, look into some topics. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I did just kind of getting your thoughts on, where the journey begins.
Yeah. Inside.
And if you're listening and think you have it figured out, or don't think it's time to start, maybe that's a red flag.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thomas, our listeners, they can go to your website. It's Thomas, it's Gelmi.coach, right?
Yeah, Gelmi.coach, not com, coach. Yeah,
Gelmi.coach. They can find you on LinkedIn, TikTok, social media. We'll share all of that in the show notes. If you're watching, want to find more what Thomas does, is his courses, his coaching, you can contact him. And I guess as we wrap up, one of our our favorite things we like to ask is how do you want to be remembered, Thomas?
Oh, okay. I would like to be remembered as someone who brings out the best in people. And it's a beautiful quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson who said, what we all need the most is someone who can bring out the best in us. And that would be lovely if people would remember me as someone who did that.
Tate, any last thoughts you have?
No, I just want to thank Thomas. I really enjoyed this conversation and getting your insights, picking your brain a little bit. And so I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Tate.
Thanks for the thoughts about awareness and influence and where to start. And thank you again, Thomas. It was fun to have you on.
Yeah, the fun was on my side too. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to
our listener, today's the day.
Thanks for joining us on the Everyday Leader podcast. If you're ready to take your leadership journey even further, subscribe to our weekly newsletter for more insights and practical tips. And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram to stay a part of our growing community. Just follow the links in the show notes. If this episode impacted you, please help us spread the word and share the link with a friend from wherever you're listening.